Welcome to the January 2022 edition of Hunt Cap Mail, where I'll attempt to answer your questions and respond to viewer comments. Before I get into January's mail, I want to thank my viewers from the bottom of my heart for the outpouring of mail concerning the end of last month's Hunt Cap Mail. Many of your letters really touched me, especially those of you going through similar circumstances and those of you who felt like my commentary gave you somewhat of a renewed perspective on your relationships with your own loved ones. I honestly have the best subscriber base on YouTube, and you guys are awesome. I didn't respond to some of those letters because, I didn't really have the right words to convey how much they meant to me. The outpouring of support from people I've never met in my life really shocked and humbled me. I also got another Dallas Safari Club convention done, which was a total miracle because airlines kept canceling and moving around flights on me, but I'm glad I went because unlike Vegas, Dallas is a very friendly city to hunters. I booked my next buffalo hunt at the convention too. It's an old school Zimbabwe hunt in a very remote area with no fences, no paved roads, no towns, no tourists, no ranches, no electricity, and no cell service. This hunt requires tons of walking and hiking through some really harsh terrain in an area riddled with malaria and hungry tsetse flies. In my opinion, that's the way dangerous game should be hunted. These conventions are a great way to meet PHs from different countries and ask them lots of questions and find a PH that's the right fit for you. So I highly recommend going to shows like Safari Club International and the Dallas Safari Club. This month is going to be another really long Hunt Camp mail. I probably received twice the letters that I've ever received in a single month. So I tried to be selective in the ones I'm answering for this video. With this prologue out of the way, let's get to January's mail. And our first letter is from Steve in Colorado. Steve wrote, "I'm a longtime subscriber, even of your old channel. I've been following you for years, and you were always the lone voice on YouTube about the 30-06, while all the others were busy telling us how much better the 6.5 Creedmoor and Magnums were. But lately, I'm noticing a trend where these same guys are now promoting the 30-06 as the perfect cartridge. Some of them even act like it's a new cartridge that is suddenly good because of modern bullets and powder. Are you seeing a resurgence in 30-06 popularity?" Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for being a longtime subscriber of my channel. And yes, I am seeing a great deal of renewed interest in the old 30-06, but I can't take credit for it. The 30-06 stands basically on its own merits, but it doesn't need any corporate marketing schemes or YouTube videos to make it popular. It's a cartridge you could compare any other cartridge to, and if you're honest about hunting distances, you'll find very few equals. The 30-06 is the only cartridge where you never hear hunters complain about twist rates, case capacity, feeding issues, overbore issues, bullet selection, powder sensitivity, primer sensitivity, recoil, barrel life, and SAMI specs. The 30-06 literally has no weaknesses at all and is among the most versatile, prolific, and slickest feeding cartridges ever made. In regards to 30-06 popularity, I think that there's basically two things happening right now. Number one, we're finally starting to see some backlash in the hunting community against long-range hunting. So super fast, inefficient, heavy recoiling cartridges are starting to lose favor with a lot of hunters right now. Also, many of these YouTube experts are starting to run real ballistic numbers on their loads within hunting distances, and they're realizing that ballistic coefficients really don't matter inside of 300 yards. And I think the second thing that's come to light is that many YouTube personalities are just now starting to get serious about reloading. And it doesn't take long to figure out that the 30-06 is just a reloader's dream come true. You know, when you start blowing up coyotes with 110 grainers, then drop a moose with a 220 grainer out of the same rifle, you know, it's impossible not to be impressed by the 30-06. I received dozens and dozens of letters after that 6.8 Western video concerning my comment where I stated how my 30-06 launches the same weight bullets at the same velocities as the 6.8. And I think it woke a lot of people up. Last year, when I told my viewers that I'd rather launch a 130 grain TTSX out of my 30-06 than my 270 Winchester, you guys went out and did your own research and were shocked that the 30-06 pushes the same weight bullet 200 feet per second faster with about the same recoil. And to those internet experts out there that claim that the 30-06 is getting popular again because of new powders, I'm going to have to use the bullshit button on this one. Bullshit! 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 The truth is that the powders that most of us commonly use in the 30-06 today have been around for over 70 years. The performance we get out of the 30-06 today has always been there for the taking. The truth is that a lot of people were too busy chasing new corporate cartridges to notice the boring old 30-06. You know, there's no marketing for the 30-06 and never has been. It's popular solely for its real-world performance in the field. And our next question is from Jake from Buffalo, New York. Jake wrote, I watched your 1950s hunt video and was surprised to see you bring out those old Jones hats. My grandfather and great-grandfather both wore those hats on bird and deer hunts. You are 100% correct in your opinion that they're the greatest and most functional hunting hat ever. Like you, I also wonder why they went out of style. Well, for those of you out there who don't know what he's talking about, watch my 1950s throwback hunt where I wore one of these Jones hats. And this is a Jones hat right here. A lot of people don't know this design is actually 140 years old. And to me, they have the perfect size brim that's big enough to keep the sun out of your eyes while you're glassing, but the brim is small enough that it doesn't hit your scope during recoil and doesn't block your view of flying birds when you look up in the air, like a ball cap often does. It can also convert to a full brim boonie hat, so you can protect the back of your neck and ears from the sun. And probably one of the coolest features of this Jones hat is that you could fold down this inner lining right here in the back, and it'll keep your ears and the back of your neck warm. You know, these are much more functional than the baseball hats that hunters usually wear today. And in that video, I stated that some hunting technology has actually gone backward, and this hat is proof of that. And our next question is from Chuck from San Diego, California. Chuck wrote, I know you are not a big believer in BCs at normal hunting distances, but I'm surprised that you don't shoot heavier bullets in the calibers you load for to take advantage of better sectional densities. In a couple of your videos, I noticed that you like 168 grain for 30-06, 150s for 7mm, and 100 grains for 25-06. You tend to choose bullets in the middle range for the calibers you shoot. My advice to you is to shoot heavier bullets to take advantage of the better sectional density. Well, Chuck, you really should watch my video titled Hunting Bullet Hype, where all of this is pretty much explained, and it might just change your mind. But to kind of summarize it for you, with modern bonded and monometal bullets, sectional density really doesn't matter anymore. like it did 30 years ago. A 130 grain Barnes bullet is going to penetrate right through an elk. As a matter of fact, a 130 or 140 grain Barnes bullet will outpenetrate a 165 grain cup and core bullet any day. Basically, bullet construction is multiple times more important than SDs. Sectional density is based on a bullet's mass and diameter, but once a bullet hits an animal and starts fragmenting and losing mass and expanding, it instantly changes its shape and mass. And those nice little SD numbers go right out the window. So once the tip of a bullet touches an animal, SDs no longer matter and bullet construction takes over. The only thing that SDs really tells you is that with bullets of the exact same construction and caliber, the heavier bullets might penetrate deeper. But when you have low sectional density modern bullets that penetrate all the way through animals, SDs really don't matter anymore. But you are 100% correct in noticing that I tend to shoot medium weight bullets in most cartridges. Honestly, I didn't even know that until you pointed it out to me. I guess it was a natural evolution of finding loads that shoot flat and have lower recoil, but still provide full penetration and more than enough energy. In life and hunting loads, I guess I'm always seeking that perfect balance of things, even when I don't realize it. But this question reminds me of a video that I watched a couple months ago by Backfire. I don't know if you guys subscribe to him on YouTube, but by the way, I don't always agree with Backfire. He's more of a latest and greatest kind of guy, and I'm more of a find perfection and stick with it kind of guy. But he's one of the few YouTubers that actually attempts to look at everything objectively, and I respect him for that. His videos are worth watching, whether you agree with them or not. Anyway, he posted a video a couple months ago about how he wasn't satisfied with the performance of the 6.5 PRC on larger African plains game. Basically, his son made a perfect shot on a small antelope. I think it was a black buck with a 6.5 Creedmoor, and that antelope ran over 100 yards before it died. Then he made an absolutely perfect shot on a wildebeest with his 6.5 PRC, and that animal ran almost a mile, and when they found it, it had to be shot again. So rightfully so, he was pretty disappointed by that performance. And by the way, I don't think the 6.5 PRC is a bad cartridge. As a matter of fact, I think it's a pretty decent cartridge. I just think that the bullet that he used was the real issue here. The ELDX is just not a premium hunting bullet. When you strip away the high BC hype, the ELD is just another cup and core bullet. But let's move on from that. So this is when Backfire's video gets really interesting to me. He decides to shoot some bullets into gel to get some information. He set up, about a 1-inch thick block of wood with about 30 or 40 inches of ballistic gelatin behind it. And he shot some bullets into it. But unlike most YouTubers, Backfire actually ignored all that BS with the gel wiggling around and jumping in slow motion, and he avoided all the stupid hydrostatic shock theories surrounding gel. And Backfire paid attention to what really matters when you shoot bullets into gel. And that's comparing bullet travel and bullet performance within that test medium. So he shot some ELDX bullets from his 6.5 Creedmoor, his 6.5 PRC, and from a 308 Winchester. He then shot some Hornady interlocks and 7mm Remington Magnum and 6.5 Creedmoor into blocks also, which, those interlocks and the ELDXs basically have the same exact design. It's a cup and core bullet with a little notch in the middle of it to try to retain the core a little bit better. But to his surprise, they all had about the same amount of penetration, regardless of speed energy, weight, or the wildly different sectional densities. He then shot a couple of monometal bullets into the test medium, and those went through the wood block, made a nice even wound channel, and ran all the way through the gel out the end and were never recovered. So, although I'm not sure he knew this, what he really revealed with his test is that bullet construction is multiple times more important than sectional density is. His high SD bullets penetrated about the same as his low SD bullets. That's because those cup and core bullets fully expanded and lost a lot of mass on impact with that block of wood. And since that ELDX changed mass and diameter on impact, the sectional density of those bullets changed dramatically before the bullet even went through the wood and entered the gel blocks. By contrast, the mono bullets probably changed shape much less and retained full weight all the way through the block and into the gel. Therefore, the monolithic bullets will always outpenetrate a cup and core bullet. You know, a good bonded bullet will also always outperform any cup and core bullet. While I agree with Backfire that the 6.5s are marginal for larger game, I think you'd have better results with something like an AccuBond or an LRX. Because those ELDs instantly, when they hit that wood block or when they hit the shoulder on a large animal, they instantly mushroom out and start shedding mass on impact, and they dump most of their energy there, which isn't what you want. You want most of that energy dumped inside the animal, inside the animal's vital area. So, I have a feeling that ELDX, he was in Africa taking shoulder shots on those animals. Those bullets probably dumped a lot of their energy into that shoulder before it did enough hemorrhaging and internal tissue damage to put that animal down relatively quick. But that's just one real world example of why sectional density means very little to the modern hunter. Don't pick a hunting bullet based on BCs and SDs. Pick a hunting bullet based on terminal performance and reliability in various circumstances. Shooting through both shoulders on an African game animal requires a good bullet, not sectional density. And our next question is from Brian from Houston, Texas. Brian wrote, "Thank you for the informative channel. I had a friendly argument with a buddy the other day about my 458 Win Mag versus his 404 Jeffery. He said that every big bore dangerous game expert out there knows that belted straight wall cases are inferior to bottleneck unbelted cases. Is this true?" Well, I'm not going to rehash the whole belted versus unbelted thing because it really doesn't matter for hunting cartridges. With hunting cartridges, reliability is more important than brass life. Brass life is only important for target shooting or brass you're using for load development. But if I'm going to go on a buffalo hunt in Africa, I'm not going to hunt with brass that's been fired 10 times. I mean, that's stupid. Usually after about 5 loadings, I don't hunt with that brass anymore. It becomes target and load development brass past that point. What your buddy told you about belted straight wall cases being inferior to bottleneck unbelted cases for dangerous game hunting is complete BS. I'm using the button on this one. Bullshit! 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 Arguably, just the opposite of what he said is probably true. For optimal headspace control and absolutely guaranteed primer ignition, a belted or rimmed case probably can't be beat. So a belted or rimmed case might hold the edge in reliability. And now let's put the rest that crap your buddy made up about experts not liking straight-walled belted cases. If you look at Boddington's book, Safari Rifles 2, Boddington surveys African PHs, and he found out that most of the modern PHs are currently using 458 lots and Win Mags to back up their clients today. If you look at the 2022 edition of Gun Digest, they have a whole section in here on Africa rifles, and they put together these tables with what hundreds of different African PHs carry in the field. And of the PHs working today, most of them carry 458s. So it seems as if the real experts actually prefer straight-walled belted cartridges. And the ones who don't seem to prefer rimmed cartridges. So stop listening to your buddy. He's definitely one of those guys that likes to tell a whopper or two. And our next question is from Chewy from Santa Ana, California. Chewy wrote, "Great channel, Desert Dog. I shopped all over SoCal in November and early December looking for a rifle for my son. I settled on an X-Bolt in 25-06, just like the one you have. It shoots under 1-inch groups with factory Barnes ammo, and the recoil is low enough that my son can shoot it really good. I had to drive 2 hours to find it. I'm glad I went with this rifle instead of the 243. When shopping for a rifle, I noticed that the gun racks at the stores are full of 6.5 PRC rifles, many of them at discounted or clearance prices. What do you think is going on?" Yeah, I'll tell you, Chewy, I'm seeing the same thing right now. The manager at Sportsman's Warehouse said they received a huge shipment of 6.5 and 300 PRC rifles and ammo, but no one's really buying them right now. I noticed that Bass Pro Shops also has a huge selection of 6.5 PRC rifles and even 6.5 PRC brass in stock. Literally every Howa, Tikka, Weatherby, and Ruger rifle in stock was chambered in either 6.5 PRC or 300 PRC at my local Sportsman's Warehouse. My local independent gun store that I frequent just got 2 Mauser M18s in stock, and I thought about buying one of those for a review, but both of those were chambered in 6.5 PRC, so I think your observation is correct. And even if you look around for rifles on Gunbroker, the ones that are all in stock right now are mostly 6.5 PRC. But quite honestly, I don't know the reason for it other than maybe manufacturers expected the cartridge to really take off like the Creedmoor did. Perhaps manufacturers are strategically saturating the market with it, or maybe people are just sick of the 6.5s already, and that's the only thing left on the shelves. I really don't have an answer to that. And our next question is from Cody from Colorado. Cody asked, "What do you think about the Ruger Model M77? I have one in 270, and I'm looking for one in 30-06. Well, thank you for the letter, Cody. As a rifle, I think the M77 is good to go. It's much better than any Remington, Mossberg, or Savage rifle in both design and quality. I hated the stocks and the trigger on the Mark IIs, but I have a lot of respect for the Hawkeye. Jim Sullivan just had a great rifle design. He was a great rifle designer. But I'll tell you why I don't personally give Ruger any of my money. I'm old enough to remember when Bill Ruger tried to ban assault weapons and standard capacity magazines here in America. I still vividly remember Bill Ruger standing with Bill Clinton stating, "Simple civilians shouldn't be allowed to have over 10 rounds in a magazine." Bill Ruger was an anti-gun commie that saw us as stupid, simple civilians. And more recently, in 2018, Ruger shareholders decided to make Ruger the first firearm manufacturer to track gun violence for the federal government. So once again, the company gets hijacked and directed by gun control advocates. So although I like the M77 as a rifle design, and I even own one, I don't give Ruger any publicity. So that's why you don't see any Ruger reviews on my channel. But maybe one day I'll get over my disgust for that company, and who knows, maybe it's time for me to forgive Ruger and move on. And our next question is from Vinny from Florida. Vinny wrote, "Great channel, Desert Dog. I noticed after you posted your reloading video, lots of hunters are switching over to expander mandrels like you use. What brand do you recommend, and why is this trend happening?" Well, Vinny, I use 21st century mandrels and their dies for the mandrels. Basically, expander balls have been the bane for the reloader for over 70 years. We hate them. You know, they overwork brass, give inconsistent neck tension, they mess with concentricity, and the manufacturer specs on those expander balls are just all over the place. You know, almost none of my dies have expander balls in them anymore. You know, the extra step might not be worth it for some hunters, but I like using accurate rifles and, you know, precise loads, and the mandrels help me to achieve that. And our next question is from Chuck in New Mexico. Chuck wrote, "Last month's hunt camp mail hit hard. The last several minutes were just gut-wrenching. You remind me of my father, tough as nails in situations that would just devastate others. He was able to keep working, paying the bills, and keep a positive spin on things while everyone else was wallowing in sadness. We kept going in times of tragedy through his strength and focus. I see that in you." Anyway, your response to Tim in October's hunt camp mail stuck with me. Your explanation of why internet forums died is the best. I don't think social media killed the forum. I think forums killed themselves. One thing you didn't mention was that real experts left forums years before they started collapsing. Why did that happen? Did they see the writing on the wall before the rest of us did? Well, thank you very much, Chuck, for the compliments and for the great question. And yes, I did notice what you explained. And I think that internet trolls and hateful people ended up running the show on forums. The real experts were the first people to get attacked by these trolls. And as a result, they were the first ones to abandon the platform. And you're right. Whether it was automotive, woodworking, gunsmithing, hunting, or fishing forums, the experts left in mass years before the actual forums started collapsing. So that's a good observation. I remember when experts like Gail and Kelly McMillan, Paul Chapman, Craig Boddington, Mark Sullivan, Bill Jordan, and even Dr. Kevin Robertson were frequent contributors to internet forums, but they began to suffer constant personal attacks from internet trolls and jealous people, and they were driven away. You know, rabid internet trolls went as far as digging into their personal finances and insulting their wives and daughters. So trust me, the miserable, jealousy-ridden, must-be-nice crowd attacks me at every opportunity. So I couldn't imagine being a celebrity in the hunting industry and putting up with that crap. But after the real experts were attacked and driven away, the internet trolls turned their attention on people like you and I, and we ended up leaving the platform. Forums became just basically a cesspool where miserable people and internet trolls were just left to attack each other, and the platform subsequently died. So I agree with you. Social media didn't kill forums. Forums basically killed themselves. Much like today's media, forums stopped providing reliable information and started spreading hate, so people rejected them. You know, trolls can be silenced on social media and YouTube by simply hiding them from your page or your channel. So that became the new medium for interactions between groups of people. You know, it's proof that the free market always brings things into balance, you know, the invisible hand. Our next question is from Pablo in Calexico, California. Pablo wrote, Desert Dog, I love your channel. I noticed that you use a dove call in your late season dove video. It sounded exactly like a mourning dove. What brand is that and how do you like it? I also hunt quail. Do you call those? Well, Pablo, usually I don't call doves. In early season, the decoys do a good job of bringing the doves in. And in the late season, knowing where the doves hang out will get you a limit. But sometimes we get really thick tule fog in the late season, and I feel like calling works in foggy or low visibility situations. So that's the only time I'll ever use a dove call. But when I do call doves, the call I use is the Fulks D8 dove call. And I've been extremely happy with this call. You know, the problem is I don't think they make these anymore. I believe they're going to a cheap plastic version now. You know, plastic or resin calls are, sound good for duck calls or waterfowl calls, but I feel that for dove and quail, nothing beats a genuine wood call. Wood just has that reverberation that sounds right and natural to me. So this is my favorite dove call, even though I don't think they make it anymore. My favorite quail calls are custom made by a local California upland hunter called the Roaming Hazard. Search YouTube for the Roaming Hazards channel and give it a look if you like solo public land upland hunting with no dogs. It really is a hidden gem of a YouTube channel, but he makes these by hand and sells them on his Etsy store. But trust me, these are the best sounding calls for California and Gambel's quail, and they're actually tunable and easy to use. You can get these at etsy.com/shop/the Roaming Hazard. And our next question is from Dave in California. Dave wrote, I'd appreciate your opinion of the 257 Weatherby. I had an opportunity to purchase a nice extreme weather Weatherby. What is the largest game you would attempt the perfect shot placement with, and a bullet that you might recommend for hunting? Well, Dave, the 257 Weatherby really is the only Weatherby cartridge that I really love. Those quarter bores just love being driven fast, and the Weatherby delivers on that. It's a definite barrel burner, though, and has a little kick for such a light bullet, which is why I prefer the 25-06 more. But if it's an old Weatherby rifle with that old 1 in 12 twist barrel, I wouldn't buy that. But the newer Weatherbys have a 1 in 10 twist barrel, and it's much better. I do most of my quarter bore hunting with the 100 grain TTSX, and I've had great success with this bullet in the quarter bores, but the 115 grain Nosler Partition is a good one too. You pretty much need a 26-inch barrel with the 257 Weatherby if you want to burn all that powder. So keep that in mind also when you're selecting a rifle for it. I think the 257 Weatherby is a great round for all deer and pronghorn, but I personally think it's on the verge of being unethical for elk. So be mindful that it's a very fast cartridge, so make sure that you use a tough bullet. And our next question is from Daniel in Missouri. Daniel wrote, I've always wanted a Model 70 Winchester featherweight woodstock in 30-06. I only hunt deer in Missouri, but I sometimes entertain the thought of an elk hunt. Do you feel the woodstock has potential to shift impact due to weather or temperature at longer range if I get a chance to hunt elk? I really don't know why people think a woodstock is fine for deer hunting, but won't work for elk. I mean, they live in the same environment. In fact, your home state of Missouri is probably wetter and more humid than any place you can hunt elk out west. So Perhaps you're talking about stand hunting versus spot and stock hunting. I don't know, but I've hunted with wood stocks my whole life, and as long as you have a stock that's properly sealed, bedded, and free floated, you won't have any issues. Like I've stated many times, I bed and free float every stock I own. If I go to the store and I buy a factory rifle from my local dealer, I do a proper bedding job on it, regardless of the stock is wood or synthetic. And I always notice an improvement with that. So the bedding job is probably more important than the stock itself. So take your rifle to a knowledgeable gunsmith, have it bedded, and enjoy a lifetime of accuracy and reliability with your wood stock. And our next question is from Gary in Nova Scotia, Canada. Gary asks, Desert Dog, if you can bring back one discontinued item from the hunting past, what would it be? You definitely got the cogs in my head turning with that question. If I can bring back one discontinued item from the hunting past, it would be scopes with that beautiful gloss finish on them like they used to have. I think it was a mistake to stop making those glossy scopes. Manufacturers claim that they stopped offering glossy scopes because that matte finish doesn't reflect light and spook animals. But let's be honest here. The real truth is that the matte black anodizing is cheaper and easier to do. That's why they're doing it. You know, when you buy a Winchester Super Grade or a custom shop Remington or a Weatherby Mark V Deluxe, you expect a high quality deep bluing job on those rifles. And the matte black scopes that they make today just don't match these guns very well at all. A proper bluing job requires the metal to be highly polished, through intensive labor, which is why most modern guns are finished by just parkerizing a cheap, rough, unpolished part. So a good bluing job is a sign of high quality and attention to detail, and it's extremely attractive. The hunting world, I feel, has been fooled into believing that matte black guns and scopes are less likely to spook deer or elk. But the truth is that people have been hunting with blued guns for hundreds of years. I mean, I've never lost an animal because of the bluing on my gun. Have you, honestly? So come on, leupold, bring back the glossy scopes for us old guys. I promise we'll pay a little bit of extra to get them. And our next question is from Bob from the Central Valley of California. Bob asked, my wife is starting in hunting, and we are planning on putting in for several states outside of California. She predominantly wants to hunt deer, but also mentioned elk. Other than the 7mm 08, which is a favorite round of mine, what else do you suggest? Well, Bob, if it was just deer, something like a 25-06 or a 6.5 Creedmoor would be absolutely perfect for that. But when you throw elk into the mix, a little more energy and frontal diameter is going to be a good thing. Honestly, for a woman just starting out and wanting to hunt deer and maybe elk, the 7mm 08 that you already mentioned is probably the perfect compromise. The classic 270 Winchester is another great starter rifle, but honestly, anything above that, and the recoil puts you into a category where you might as well just shoot the damn 30-06. So if that 7mm 08 is your favorite cartridge, why not make it your wife's favorite cartridge too? That'll make the ammo and reloading situation much easier and much more efficient as well. And our next question is from Marco from Italy. Marco wrote, I love this channel. Too bad I missed the last giveaway. American hunting gear is very hard to get in Italy. But I see you hunting with those great Italian shotguns, and it makes me think that the opposite is not true. Americans are lucky to have access to so much. I just received my license, and found this channel by researching 30-06, which is what most men in the hunting club use for boar. Are you aware that the 30-06 is popular and loved in Italy as well? Well, I'm pretty much fully aware of that, Marco. I get a lot of exposure to European hunters, and I'm not surprised when I see them show up to camp with a 30-06 or a 7mm Rem mag. It seems like most Americans expect to see 7x64s when we hunt with Europeans, but we almost never do. You know, it's crazy how many of those old Browning bars chambered in 30-06 are floating around Europe today. And our next question is from Jimmy from Phoenix, Arizona. Jimmy wrote, Desert Dog, I don't want to sound like an asshole because I love your channel, but I cringe every time you mispronounce the word leupold. It's pronounced leupold or Leopold, not leupold. I'm surprised nobody has corrected you yet. Other than that, love the videos. Jimmy. I know it's easy to see the status quo, even among many YouTube experts, and believe that's where the truth lies. But unfortunately, you've been misled, Jimmy. I've known several top employees of that company, and I've been to their plant in Oregon. It's pronounced leupold. So perhaps I'm the one that's cringing when the experts pronounce it wrong. But truth be told, I'm not the language police, so I really don't care how you say it as long as I know what you're trying to say. But the fact that so many YouTube channels with well over 100,000 subscribers pronounce simple things like leupold, Whalen, Zauer, and Sacco wrong should make you question reality from time to time. And my next letter is from Dave from Washington. Dave from Washington wrote, enjoying, better yet learning from your content. I have seen several of your videos over the past year, and I just finished watching your videos on various pant options as well as the duplex reticle. What are your thoughts on a duplexish style reticle with windage and a red dot? Well, in that video, Dave, I briefly discussed the Windplex reticle and its usefulness to the hunter for those longer shots. And about the red dot, I probably should have included a section on illumination in that video, but I was trying to focus on reticle design rather than scope features. And illumination is a scope feature, not a reticle design. But most of my scopes are duplex reticles with the fire dot feature in them, which puts an illuminated dot in the center of the crosshairs. I love the simplicity of Leupold's fire dot, and I like that I can turn it on and off when I want illumination, which, you know, I want illumination off most of the time. So I like a simple dot that can be turned off, but I don't like reticles that are permanently illuminated. So that duplex reticle with the fire dot is just perfect for me. Now we have a letter from Brad from New Hampshire. Brad wrote, I watched your video on the 338 Winchester Magnum. I don't really have a need for one, but I believe I'm going to get one. Mostly what I hunt here in New Hampshire is deer and black bear. I am a hand loader, and my question is, have you done any testing at lower velocities? I see in my book that you can get down to 30-06 velocities with the same bullet weights. I realize the 338 will chew through more powder and ultimately be more expensive to load for, but my question is of accuracy at 30-06 velocities. Well, I know it's the last thing you want to hear. Probably the last thing you want to hear is me telling you not to get the 338. Just get a 30-06 if that's the performance you want and need. It's also good that you understand that loading down the 338 Win Mag is a huge waste of expensive and hard to get reloading supplies. So, you know, I guess I won't go there because you're already aware of that. Unfortunately, I have no load data for reduced loads for any cartridges because I don't like reduced loads. You know, if I don't want 338 recoil and muzzle blast, I'll just shoot my 30-06. If I don't want or need 30-06 recoil, I'll just shoot my 25-06. And if I don't need or want the 25-06, I'll shoot a 22. So when it comes to highly reduced loads, I'm the wrong guy to ask because I don't really see the value in using them. And now we have a question from Logan from Southern California. Logan wrote, "Hi, Desert Dog. I love the content you put out on your channel. I've been hunting deer a few days a year for the last 5 years or so, unsuccessfully, and your videos have really inspired me to dedicate more time to hunting in the outdoors. I was fortunate enough to draw an antlerless tag for a hunt here in Southern California, and I took a bit of time off work for the trip. I ended up shooting a deer in the first hour of the hunt. Now I'm enjoying a winter of venison breakfast sausage, chili, and steaks. This was my first deer, and it's been such a fulfilling experience. Thanks for using your channel to share your passion for hunting. Your success in A-Zone shows public land deer hunting in California can be done." And here's a picture of Logan's first deer. Well, congratulations, Logan. Those black-tailed does are absolutely delicious. I really wish California would do over-the-counter antlerless tags. That would take pressure off the bucks and let them get big in this state because most of us are after the meat, not the record books. But unfortunately, California's management strategy ensures that most bucks never get over 2.5 years old. But congratulations on your first successful hunt, and hopefully it inspires you to continue hunting. And our next question is from Fernando in Mexico. Fernando wrote, "Thanks for sharing your very valuable experience. I have not many options to choose powders. Please let me know what are the pros and cons of the IMR 4350 compared to the H 4350. Well, Fernando, although they're both extruded powders that are made by Hodgdon, they're not the same. H 4350 is a slightly slower powder than IMR 4350, but they're very close in burn rate properties. You'll probably see a difference of about 1 or 2 grains to achieve the same velocities with those. But H 4350 is one of Hodgdon's extreme powders, and it's very temperature stable. And I also think that H 4350 and Varget have the best lot-to-lot consistency of any powders on the market. And for these reasons, I feel that H 4350 is a superior powder to IMR 4350. The only real problem with H 4350 is that it's probably the powder that's in the highest demand, so it's often impossible to find. But in a pinch, I wouldn't hesitate to use IMR 4350 or IMR 4451 as a substitute. Watch my video on IMR 4451, and it's actually a great powder that I'm starting to use more often instead of H 4350. And our next letter is from Ryan. Ryan wrote, "Hello, Desert Dog. Loved your review of the X-Bolt 25-06. I have a question that I hope you can answer. I used to own a Remington 700 Custom Deluxe 25-06. I'm searching high and low for another one made in the early 90s or late 80s. Between the two, would I just be as well off to get a new Browning?" I don't know, Ryan. That old Custom Deluxe is a finer rifle to look at probably, but probably no more practical than getting a new Browning. Just keep one thing in mind. High velocity cartridges like the 25-06 go through barrels faster, so buying a rifle with a 30-year-old barrel might be pretty risky. I've seen coyote hunters burn out 25-06 barrels in a couple years, but on the same note, I've seen deer hunters that have had maybe 100 to 150 rounds through their rifles in 20 years or more. So you're definitely taking a risk by buying a used rifle. And our next question is from Thorsten from Germany. Thorsten wrote, "My research on the internet related to the impact shift from rain has brought little to or unsatisfactory results. So I'd like to ask you, do you have experience with this? Even if it has effects, how much does it matter? Is it negligible in terms of hunting?" Well, that's a great question, Thorsten, that most hunters never really think about. Some of this information was taught to me in my last NRA instructors class, but logic would tell you that raindrops would slow a bullet down and cause it to drop faster, right? But you need to disregard that line of thinking because just the opposite is usually true. Yep, that's right. Bullets can impact slightly higher in the rain, but this isn't because of the rain itself. It's because of the lower barometric pressure during the rain event. Low barometric pressure equals less air density, which equates to less air resistance on the bullet and a slightly higher point of impact. But I'm thinking that your question was more centered around a raindrop actually colliding with a bullet, which is actually quite rare outside the laboratory. But in laboratory conditions, water droplets hitting a bullet have caused yawing in off-course bullets. It's happened in the lab. But in order for the bullet to be affected by the raindrop, the water droplet has to land perfectly on the bullet's ogive from above. And this is a very rare occurrence outside the lab. So to put things in perspective, I've shot many, many matches in the rain, and I've never personally seen a bullet go astray because of the rain. Even the military doesn't stop training in the rain, or, the military doesn't cancel missions because of the rain. Every experienced hunter out there right now has taken animals in the rain. Hell, the best deer and pig hunting I've ever experienced here in California were during rain events. So there's an extremely slight, almost non-existent chance that a raindrop could hit the bullet ogive perfectly and throw off the trajectory, but it's definitely not something worth worrying about and shouldn't stop you from hunting in the rain. And our next question is from Robert from South Carolina. Robert wrote, "I watched your video on 22 mag and you had a CZ 457. I'm torn between 22 mag and 17 HMR. I want something to shoot and hunt bobcat here in South Carolina." Well, Robert, if you get the CZ 457, you could shoot both of those cartridges and decide which one you like the best. Remember, you could swap barrels and switch calibers with the CZ 457. I personally like to hunt with the 22 Magnum and target shoot with the 17 HMR, but both will easily kill a bobcat. Our next question is from Gregory from Ohio. Gregory wrote, "I just watched your video about hunting pants. It was interesting, but the ending made the whole video irrelevant in my opinion. Your speech about buying products made in China really made me think because nobody has ever explained it that way before. I really laughed out loud when you said, don't buy from a country that has ICBMs pointed at your house, and then had to stop laughing and get serious when I realized that it's true. I now look at the origins of all the hunting gear I buy, and most of it is made in that evil country. Thank you for speaking the truth." Just to clarify, Gregory, be mindful that the Chinese people are actually good folks. It's their horrible government that's the issue here. It's an absolutely evil government that commits atrocities on the same level as the villainous dictators that we read about in our history books. Yet, Western governments and American consumers just ignore it and rejoice in the blood money. If you get a chance, Read the book, Made in China by Amelia Peng. She explores every aspect of our dependence on Chinese products, the politics behind it, and even risks her own life going undercover as a buyer to expose Chinese forced labor camps. So after reading this book, you might not want to ever wear your First Light or Patagonia gear ever again. And our next letter is from Andrew. Andrew wrote, "What's your opinion on the 300 Winchester Short Magnum cartridge? And how versatile is it in regards to reloading? I'm an avid deer hunter and hope to one day get the moose lottery. I enjoy short action calibers the most." Well, the 300 Winchester Short Magnum is more efficient and has better SAMI specs than the old 300 Win Mag. So I really like the 300 Winchester Short Magnum. You know, it achieves the exact same velocity with the exact same powder charge as the venerable old 300 H&H Magnum, which is my favorite Magnum of all time. But the 300 WSM is probably way overkill for deer, pronghorn, and pigs, but it's just right for elk and perfectly adequate for your moose hunt too. But don't fall for the short action hype. I hear way too many YouTube experts extolling the virtues of the short action rifle, but this is just a regurgitation of marketing hype from the firearm industry, in my opinion. The guys who tell you, "I only like short actions," are usually the same guys who shoot their 6.5 PRC rifles without realizing that those are long actions. I watched a homer on YouTube last week talking about how great the 300 WSM is because it's a short action cartridge. And he also raved about how much he loves his Tikka TX3 without even realizing that all of the Tikka T3Xs, no matter what cartridge they're chambered for, they're all long actions. And trust me, from extensive experience over decades of doing this, in practice, you will never know the difference between shooting a short action and a long action. People who complain about pulling the bolt back an extra 3/8 of an inch are basically sheep that have been brainwashed into the hype. You know, you can't even say that short action cartridges are more efficient all the time. You know, take a look at the old 300 H&H Magnum. I mean, it's 3/4 of an inch longer than the 300 Winchester Short Magnum, yet they burn this same exact powder charge at the same velocity. So where's that improved efficiency? So I wouldn't choose the 300 Winchester Short Magnum because it's a short action cartridge. I'd pick it because, other than maybe feeding, it's a better cartridge than the 300 Win Mag. And our last letter for the month is from Mick. Mick didn't say where he's from, but from this letter I'm about to read, it's pretty easy to discern his origins. Mick wrote, "Hi, dog of the desert." I love that. Dog of the desert. Love it. Dog of the desert. "Hi, dog of the desert. First, I'd like to thank you for your honest and well-informed information. You have a great channel and provide great content, so please don't change anything. Now, I've been hunting since I was 13 years old. That is some 40 years ago, and to this day, have never taken an animal beyond 250 meters. I've been getting so very pissed off with this bullshit new trend of long distance, so-called hunting, which looks like it's growing in popularity. This seems to be backed by people who should know better. The firearm industry, firearm manufacturers, ammunition company, firearm media, and the whole horde of wankers on the web who seem to think taking pot shots at animals at some stupid long distance is some form of sport. All these dickheads can fuck right off, I say. So, dog of the desert, I consider you a bloody superstar and legend, mate, and I would welcome you to sit at my campfire anytime for speaking the truth without fear or favor, and the proper motivation and ethics of what really takes and means to be a hunter. Anyway, cheers and take care, bloke. Love that letter. Well, thanks for the absolutely lovely letter, Mick. And I'd be happy to sit around the campfire and shoot the shit with you all night, mate. Many hunters, I believe, right now are at a moral and philosophical crossroads with the firearm industry right now because of the same concerns that you just expressed. To me, it seems like the art of stalking close to animals is being lost on this new generation of hunters. I ask the guys who brag about their 600-yard shots, why they didn't stalk any closer. And they usually state that stalking closer was impossible, yet I hunt the same area and never have to take a shot over 200 yards. What I usually find out is that these people just don't know how to get close to animals. And rather than study animal behavior and patterns, they punch paper at long distances to prepare for a hunt. They aren't doing anything illegal. So, I won't chastise them too much, but it just seems like the real meaning of the hunt and respect for the game is being lost in today's age. And I feel like the hunting community needs to buck industry marketing and find its moral compass again. Well, that concludes another edition of Hunt Camp Mail. Here's some hunting and fishing memes for January. And I want to thank all of my subscribers for enduring another really long episode of Hunt Camp Mail. I also have some great ideas for a regular series of videos I'd like to do, including Desert Dogs Movie Night and a series called Made in America, where I'll occasionally introduce you to some great American-made hunting gear. So subscribe and hit the notification button, and you'll be notified about those great upcoming videos. You can contact me with any questions or comments at desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com. As always, thank you for watching and good hunting.